You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. We've got a very special guest episode today. I'm your host, Dan Robertson, joined by Ashley Priest. Ash, before we introduce our guest, you okay?
I was a special guest then. You introed that.
You alright?
Yeah, I'm well. Looking forward to this one. Buzzing for this.
Actually, before we start, what's the biggest kind of question you wanted to ask our guest and what we're going to find out? We've got some extensive list of questions, so hopefully our guest is willing to sit here for an hour or so. Introducing Neil Cutler to the Claret and Blue podcast. How are you, Neil?
Very well, thank you. Very well, yeah. All recharged. I've had a bit of rest now, so I'm feeling good. Reintroduced myself to the kids and the family, so yeah, all good.
I suppose we go back chronological order. We'll do this when you joined Villa. How did that move come about in November 18? Can you kind of explain the process?
Yeah, well, I was at West Brom at the time, and things were going quite well at West Brom. I was working with Ben Foster. I'd stepped up with Darren Moore when Alan Pardew left, and I was enjoying it. I was enjoying the football club. But when Aston Villa comes calling and Dean Smith comes calling, I just had to move forward. I had to move on to it. I understood the size of Aston Villa, the size of the football club, the direction it was heading. He didn't really have to sell it too much to me. I'd worked with Dean before, obviously, and we've got a really good relationship. So it was a no-brainer for me and the family. So then, obviously, when I had a chat with Dean, with Christian, and things went from there. But it was seamless, really. The move across was quite seamless.
What's that initial conversation like? Does Dino give you a WhatsApp? Does he ring you?
No, he rang me. I think I was away at the time. My boy who plays for Wolves. He's a goalkeeper at Wolves. We were away in Germany. He was on a tournament in Germany. So he just rang me straight away and said, "Look, there's an opening coming up. Would you fancy coming to work with me again?" And because of how well we did at Walsall and the relationship we have, like I say, it was a no-brainer. So it was more or less a yes straight away. Although the relationships I had with Darren Moore, Jimmy Shan, and people like that at West Brom was really good. I mean, I loved working with them. I loved working with the football club, but the pull of Aston Villa was too much for me, and the size of the club and the direction it was heading.
Was it a bonus kind of staying in the area as well? Does that help with the kids?
I think it does. I think with the family have moved around a lot over the years with me in football. So I think it was just important that we did stay in the area for a period of time. Obviously, it was at Walsall, then went to West Brom, and then obviously the Villa thing was. But that wasn't the main part for me. The main part was the size of the football club and the direction my career was going to head.
Yeah, what's Dean like to work with? Give us a flavour, Dean Smith.
Fantastic. I mean, the thing with Dean, he's a friend, but also he's so driven. The best part of him is his emotional control is unbelievable. Like you win, you lose, you draw. He's the same person. He's a people person. His personality is first class. Everybody that's come across him will say exactly the same thing about him. He doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low, but he's massively driven and taking places forward. He creates cultures. He creates a real culture within a football club. It gains a togetherness, which I think everybody saw at the time at Aston Villa. He did exactly the same at Walsall. He got the players, the fans, the staff, everybody was together in the same journey. Did exactly the same at Aston Villa. That's what he does. He creates a culture. He creates an atmosphere around the football club where you can come into work and you just be yourself. There's no egos. There's just, you come in, you do your work to the best of your ability, and you go. I think that's the main part about him, is that he creates that togetherness. He does it seamlessly. He just does it through his own personality.
Yeah, I'm going to ask that. How does he do it? Just through meetings and just galvanising the group?
Yeah, just being himself. Like the way he gets around the players, way he gets around the staff. He'll treat the cleaner the same way as he'll treat one of the first team players. It's just, like I say, creating a culture where everybody's on the journey and the same direction. Everybody's willing to fight. That's the thing. If you're a good person, people are willing to run through brick walls for you, and that's what he creates. And that's what happened at Villa. We created a culture. We created an atmosphere around the place where everybody's working for each other and pulling in the same direction. I think that's why we went on such a good run.
I mean, we're both supporters, so I'm coming at this from a supporter point of view, and you can hopefully clarify if I'm wrong here. I said before we started, I'm very nosy, so if I say anything that's over the line, just pull me back in, it's fine. Smith kind of talked a lot about kind of not getting too high with the highs, not getting too low with the lows to supporters, and that came across in press conferences and stuff as well. The impression I got from Gerrard, and we're jumping ahead here massively, is that losing did affect him. It hurt him. He really ate him up. First of all, is that true? And if it is, which kind of environment is better to work under? Would you prefer that kind of stable?
I feel for Steve, really, because Steve is a good guy, like a real good guy, like generous, caring, driven. But obviously, he's not as experienced as Dean when it comes to management, so he would probably struggle a little bit more than Dean does. And I don't think the Villa fans really got to see his personality and how he is as a person as much as probably he could have shown it a little bit more, because he's a good guy, driven, obviously knowledgeable, obviously detailed. But they didn't see the best of him, I don't think. Obviously, he comes in every day and he kind of kept himself to himself a little bit. And that's just the way he is, and that's probably the way he's had to be as a player. You know, that trust thing. Been one of the best players in the world for a long time. You know, there's only certain amount of people you can bring into your group and trust. So I think he probably would have found that a little bit difficult. You know, bringing his personality over and allowing him to open up a little bit more with the players and the fans, because he's a top person with some really good ideas and some really good thoughts. And I think, given a bit more time, a bit more experience, he'll be able to bring that across a little bit more, you know, because his ideas and his thoughts were excellent, were very, very good. Obviously, he's been in the game a long time and knows the game, and I think that's just the next step of his development, is that he'll bring that across a little bit more, his personality, how he is. Like, I don't think the fans saw how driven he actually was to win games, like massively driven, like wanted to, like desperate to win. And I just don't think the fans really got to see the best of him.
How does that kind of drive to win come across, like in a physical format? Is that loads of training sessions? Is it big team meetings? Like, can you explain how that drive is translated to players?
His general persona, just the way he is. He obviously, the same as he was a player, they brought over to be a manager. You could see as a player he was desperate to win, like his desire to win games. And yeah, I mean, he brought it across in terms of, you know, how he spoke to players, how we did meetings, how we trained, but it just didn't quite happen. Just didn't click. And I also think there was a little bit of bad luck along the way with that. When we were obviously winning, we had chances to win games and never took them. There's so many games where, you know, we created chances and just couldn't score. We had injuries at difficult times, and so I think, you know, he given a little bit more luck, he would have moved forward with that, and it would have been a lot better for him, because, like I say, he's not a bad person, he's not a bad manager, he's a top guy with some really good ideas.
And that kind of came across in your tweet after he left. You kind of wished him well, as, you know, he's a good guy, good to speak to and stuff, and fans kind of went back at that and saying,
I said he didn't deserve that, but I got on with him really well.
Because at the end of the day, fans want results.
Exactly. And
in the day, results never came, and that's just the way it is. Fans want to see a certain way that Villa are going to play, and they want to see results.
Spot on.
Yeah. Let's rewind back to the Dean Smith era. I'm sure we'll talk about Gerrard a little bit later. 10-game winning run. There was 10 results there in a row. Just explain to us what that must have been like, the momentum of winning, going to a game going, we're going to win today.
Well, I think the first thing that Dean did really well was having Jack Grealish as a captain was huge in terms of galvanising the place, you know, getting everybody in the same direction. We spoke about that just, and not only did it get the staff and the players, but I think all the fans bought into, you know, we got a Villa fan as a manager, you got a Villa fan as a captain, and everybody was in it together. You know, that closeness was there. And I think the big game for me was Rotherham away. When we beat Rotherham, everybody was then like, we are, you know, that's simple for them. So we've got a chance. And then it just, once you get the momentum and you get that on, and you get on a roll, and all the players start to believe, and all the players pull together, and you've got a togetherness, and you've got a hell of a chance. And I think that's what it was mainly about, you know, the togetherness of the group. And I think that's what, at the minute, that's been a bit tough for the group. The togetherness of the group is a little bit wayward at times, but that will come. That they'll get closer together as results come. I think that what results bring is they bring the lads closer together. Once you win a couple of games, and you, especially when you go through a game like Rotherham where you're behind and 10 men, and, you know, once you win games like that, that gets the group so close together, and the belief, and And once you got people in your team like Jack Grealish and John McGinn and people like that who are like, like driven and their characters, and then you've got half a chance.
Yeah.
On that decision to make Grealish captain, there's a question later on about in the Project Restart, there was a lot of images of you, Smith, O'Kelly and Terry kind of together as like this team, this coaching team.
Yeah.
So, you just think, well, you're a goalkeeping coach, you deal with the goalkeepers, but it looked like this unit of people that work together. Mm-hmm. On that decision to make Grealish captain, how does that come about? Is that Dino going, I think this will work? Is that a group decision?
Yeah, I think the gaffer Dean was obviously a big player in that. But Jack's work ethic in the training ground were leadership qualities. He was the last in every day. I wouldn't say he was the first in, but he was definitely the last in. So his desire to improve was unbelievable. His desire to win in training every single day was top end. He would do anything to win a game, like anything. Like his desire, he'd be arguing with people. He just wants to win, and that's where he is. He's a sore loser. He's the worst sore loser ever. He'd blame the coaching staff. He'd blame his players. But you want people like that who do anything to win, and that's how he is. That's how he's built. You can see what he's like off the pitch. You can see what he's done like in the World Cup now, the way he is with other people, the way he goes about with charities, and he's just a good, honest guy, that wants to win, and that's what you want as a captain. The only issue you've got is when Jack would turn up late, or when little things came awry like that. But Dean dealt with that fantastically well. He dealt with Jack fantastically well because he knew him as a person, like in detail knew him as a person, so knew how to deal with him, knew how to get the best out of him, and that's probably why he's gone on to be where he is now.
Yeah.
What did you make of the Grealish captaincy at the time? Can you remember, cast your mind back? Because it was not a strange decision, but he's not been a captain before in a first
bold,
team.
Wasn't
like
it, really? He hasn't been a captain before. It was new, but the fans bought into it. Best player at the time, and he was in real form at that time as well. So, credit to Dean for that decision. He just did them little decisions he made. It helped towards the promotion, didn't it, really?
Yeah, well, effectively, yeah.
Well, he'd do anything to win that final, when Jack he wanted his club to be in the Premier League, and that's...
It's about what you said earlier as well, about the kind of mentality and that togetherness, that we were kind of looking at that going, well, I'm the same age as Jack, so, oh my God, look at him, he's captain of my club, that's like a special thing. You mentioned the Rotherham game as the time where you kind of thought, oh my God, we might do it. Was that the feeling in the dressing room as well?
100%,
the thing in football is one game at a time and stuff like that, but when you win the 7th game in a row and the 8th game in a row, you must think, we're going to do it here.
Right. You get yourself in a role, and you get yourself and I think as well, once you win a few games, and you got to think the amount of pressure on these players to get that. The club is a huge club. If you don't get that club promoted, you're under pressure again. So the pressure amongst the players and amongst the staff to get it promoted was huge, because it's a huge club. So once you win a few games, that kind of pressure comes off you a little bit. Like you feel, right, we've won a few games here. The pressure comes off. Everybody's in a good place. The fans are in a good place, and that's when you get into that momentum. It's when you lose a few, it's like, oh, hang on a sec. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like you feel the atmosphere change a little bit. But there's no better fans than Aston Villa fans when you're winning games and they're behind you and the atmosphere's high, and we just got on that momentum then.
So we're going to skip ahead to the Albion game now.
We want to chat about this, haven't we?
Yeah, we want to talk about the Steer Holgate thing. Now, I've seen somewhere before, I don't know whether it's on Twitter or an article or quotes from you in the past, the fan perception, or I think it's changed a little bit now, but the fan perception at the time was this: Jed Steers stared out Mason Holgate. He's put put him under pressure kind of thing. I've seen somewhere since that they're not actually even almost walking side by side, and he's looking towards the bench for instructions and to you, I presume. Yeah. So first of all, is that the case? Can you debunk the myth? And secondly, what are the instructions?
I don't really want to say this, but he was looking in my direction. Okay. The issue, obviously, we go through penalties for every game, and we went through in real detail about the penalty shootout. We went into deep detail, and it's hard for Jed. Jed was outstanding, and just to try and relieve him a bit of pressure, I'd make sure that they look at me just to make sure, which way they're going, which direction you're going. And it was a difficult one because I don't think Mason Holgate was down to take a penalty. Obviously, I think they'd taken off Chris Brunt, and a few other the penalty takers had come off the pitch. So he wasn't one that we thought was going to take it. And if I'm really honest, I guessed which direction he was going to. So I was like, I think he's going to go that direction because of the type of player he is. So, and don't get me wrong, I can tell him which direction to go. It doesn't mean he has to go that way. The discussions we have are discussions. So we'll say, I think he's going to do this, and then we'll have other other goalkeepers in the room, and we'll have a discussion about which direction, and then it's up to him on the day to decide which direction he wants to go. But yeah, he was definitely, Jed is not the type of person to stare at a player to go to that. But yeah, he was looking in my direction to see which direction.
Yeah, basically. I mean, every time that comes around on social media and stuff, like a year of it, it's like happy Jed Steer Day kind of thing. It's like he stared him down.
Yeah, but what a performer! Like in that run, Jed was outstanding. You wouldn't want any other person at that time to be in goal for you, because his consistency, day in, day out, is different class. And I just feel so sorry for him for his injuries, because he's a top professional who goes above and beyond to be the best he possibly can, to get the best out of himself.
Yeah. When we talked about this on the way this morning and yesterday in the planning for the questions and stuff, it was like I told you Santa Claus wasn't real when I told you that this is the version of the story.
It's dark arts.
It's like I got this question about Ash had written the first kind of draft, and it's like, well, that's near like the dark arts of Jed Steer. I was like, I don't think it's true.
Jed is completely different to Emi. Emi would have done that.
Yeah, he'd be dancing and all sorts.
Yeah, Emi would have got in his face and all kinds, but Jed's just not that kind of character, but Emi definitely is.
How's Jed now anyway? He's on his way back?
He's on his way back, yeah. He's not far off. He's Achilles, yeah, so he's not far off now, so hopefully he'll be back training and back at it soon, yeah. Yeah. It was difficult for me as well, because obviously I'd left West Brom, so a lot of my mates were over there. A lot of people that I'd worked with and got really friendly with were in the opposite dugout, so it was really, really difficult, but, you know, I got a bit of stick after that game, to be honest, yeah.
What kind of pressure comes with the semi-finals? Because obviously you've had that 10-game winning run to get into the playoffs, so you've kind of done half the job, because you've got to get through the playoffs and then get through the final. So what kind of pressure does that bring? It's obviously a local rivalry for fans as well.
Yeah, big pressure. But when you're on that kind of run, you feel a little bit unbeatable. You've got players in there can win you games. And then like Tammy Abrahams, people like that, you go, he's going to win us a game here. Yeah. You know, you've got match winners all over the pitch, so you never kind of ever feel like although the game's really tight, you feel secure in the fact that you got these players that are going to win your games at that level. Like a Tammy Abraham in the Championship, you're going, you know, he's going to score your goals. He's going to score your goals. So, you know, the way we set up and the run we were on, we felt like, you know, we're in a good place to win. And once we beat West Brom, we were never going to lose. Never going to lose.
Yeah, I love hearing that from the inside, because that's the feeling I had as a supporter. I was like, if we get through Albion, and the way was it Derby Leeds in the other semi? Yeah. I thought, if it's Derby, we'll beat Derby. That's the kind of arrogance I had about it all, which is maybe wrong as a supporter, because you can get bitten, but I like him from inside the club. He thought, no, we'll win.
There's a quote from Dean Smith. He said, if we play Derby in the final, we can't lose, or something. The probabilities.
He just knew. He just knew. We had meetings before, like obviously staff meetings just between us, like the football staff, and he was like, we're not losing this, can't lose it, we won't lose it. It was never in doubt in his mind that we're ever going to lose that game. And the best feeling I think one of the best feelings I ever had in my life was the coach going through the fans on the way to the stadium. Was unbelievable, like the best feeling ever. And we just knew, we just knew. Yeah,
the Wembley preparations, how was it? Was it a big, massive deal, or was you quite comfortable?
We kind of kept it like it was another game. We wanted to keep it like, you know, a bit more low key, a little bit more like it's not a huge thing. We've just got one more game, that is it. We didn't want to, you know, like create this kind of atmosphere where it was anything different to any other game. Obviously it was, and obviously there's big pressure on them, but we tried to keep it as normal as we possibly could, knowing that we have match winners in the team, exactly like I just said. You know, we just keep it normal, try and keep the psychology, you know, like it's just another game, just go and play another game. And in typical Aston Villa style, we conceded late on. Yeah. I'm like, why? Every time does this have to happen? Why can't we just cruise at 2-0 and just everything's nice and everything's happy, and then we concede? So it's like we have to make it difficult for ourselves. Always. But like we knew, like, and that's no disrespect to Derby. We just, because they were a good team with some really good players. It wasn't that. It was the fact that we were just on a roll. We had some really strong characters, like people like Millet and people like that, who were strong around the group, who you could depend on. To be strong around the group, and we just knew.
Yeah, strong around the group. But about JT as well, his involvement at that time.
Yeah, massive. Fantastic. His experience and knowledge was brilliant. And the way we developed the football club around about that time was we'd have individual unit work. So we'd have obviously me with the goalies, JT would take the centre halves. The gaffer might take the midfield players, Richard Kelly take the strikers, and to have JT's knowledge the work that he did with those back players, and then obviously the work he did with the rest of the team was fantastic. And leading into big games, he's a big game guy, and he's used to it. He's confident around it. To have his knowledge and experience was fantastic. And kind of another guy that is. People don't really understand his character, and I know across the country, people don't understand what he's like really as a person, but another genuinely unbelievable guy, one of the best.
I know it's a different manager, different coaching staff, different players as well in some aspects, but was there any mention of losing the playoff final the year before in the build-up? Because JT would have played in that.
Yeah, never mentioned, never brought up, never mentioned. It was never, because I wasn't involved in that, but nothing ever came up. I didn't know anything about it really. I'd seen it, but it was never brought up to the fact we can't lose again, we can't be doing this, we can't be doing that. Yeah, never mentioned, never brought up, it was never in anybody's minds.
On Steer as well, obviously the semi-final was this big effort, penalty shootout, local rivalry, big kind of effort to get there. Yeah. How do you recover that in the build to the final? Do you have to kind of calm him down? Do you have to do loads of research about Derby, or is it just because
we do loads of research anyway? Our detail, we do. So we would have done a debrief of the game, what he's done wrong, how we improve from that, leading into the next day, and then we have a threats meeting. So we have a threats meeting on exactly what Derby would have done, all their threats, how they score, how they create.
Is that just goalkeepers, or is that the whole squad?
That's the goalkeepers. They'll have their own individual stuff, like JT would have taken the centre halves, So we'll go through all the details of Derby in that threats meeting, and we'd have worked on it all the way leading into the final. So no stone would have been unturned. It would have been the detail of how we're gonna stop them, how we're gonna deal with what they create and what their main threats are. So we made sure, and again, it's not like it's it's me telling them what to do. It's more of a discussion. Yeah. I think this is what they're going to do. What are your thoughts? And that's the best how you get the best out of people.
That 7 or 8 minute stoppage time was probably the longest period of my life at the end of that game, but the celebrations after were worth it.
As well,
yes.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
You can ask about celebrations in a sec. How do you manage that? Obviously, drawing the game. What do you feel that kind of nervousness as well?
Yeah. At the time, you look at Dean, and Dean was just ice cold. Yeah, ice cold. And I was like, oh my god, I'm looking around the stadium, and all our fans are going, if we mess this up now, oh my god. And it was it took forever, ever. And I'm quite emotional on the bench anyway. I'm really emotional. I properly I feel it.
Yeah,
I feel it. But luckily, you got people like Dean that are calm and cool, and I did a lot. I did all the set pieces at the time, so I'm up and down, trying to sort all the set pieces out. And
but you were glad it was over at the end.
It was what a relief. As a coach and as a player, all you want to do is get to the Premier League. That's all you want to do. That's your life goal. You want to get to the Premier League. You want to stay in the Premier League, and to do that in the playoffs is the most unbelievable feeling I think you could ever have.
Yeah, take us to the night then, the Hilton. Everyone's on the karaoke. How was it?
Great night.
Balcony.
Unbelievable night. Yeah, got into the room and straight to the dressing room. Yeah. I think I must have smashed about 3 or 4 bottles down my neck in the space of about 2 minutes. I was like, oh my god. Yeah, so we had a few drinks in the changing room. I think the Prince came in afterwards and said a few words to the lads. The owners came in, the lads tried to get some watches out of them. And then we went to the Hilton and then had a great night. We had a band on. And
do you remember it?
Bits of it. It was a free bar, so I remember to a certain amount. Great night. It was a great night. It took me about 2 weeks to get over it. Yeah.
What season, huh?
What was your night like for that?
I was in the...
You in the away?
That was my last game as a fan before I took the role on. So I went with my brother. Can't remember getting home, to be fair. It was just euphoria, seeing the ticker tape, the trophy. It doesn't happen. So great scenes, and memorable night for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll move forward to the summer of that year then. We signed Tom Heaton, £8 million release clause I've got here in front of me. I don't know if that's true or not. Was that a recommendation from you, or is it kind of scouting departments?
How definitely. We needed a goalkeeper that was consistent and experienced at that level. And Tom epitomises that. He is that. He's one of the best personable people I've ever met. Yeah. People love him. He's that kind of person. But not only that, he's a fantastic goalkeeper who's consistent, who's been consistent over the years, and you knew that he was going to go into the Premier League and be good and there wouldn't be any issues. Just slot in nicely. So he, for me, was possibly the first signing where I think that we need him. We need him to be consistent. We need consistency in our first year. So
you speak to him? Did you direct or?
Yeah. Spoke to him a lot. And that's a big thing, when you want to sign a goalkeeper, they've got to trust you as a person, and you've got to have a relationship, and that's why you always gain. There has to be relationships between.
Did he always catch your eye at all, or did you know him previously?
I just knew that he'd be consistent in the Premier League because that's what he's done for many years, and not only that, he's consistent as a person, and that's what Dean buys into. People, he's a top person who's still driven at whatever age he is now. So we knew he'd come in and be good for us.
Just a kind of a transfer rumour, I guess. A friend of mine went pretty big on Twitter at the time, who will be watching this probably, saying that Jack Butland was close or was a done deal or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, we spoke
there?
to Jack. Jack was a different one at the time because he was struggling a little bit in his performances at Stoke. So I think I look at goalies and go, I can make him better. I can make him be top end. That's just how I feel when I see a goalkeeper. Even if he's struggling at another club, I can go, I can make him. He's quick, he's athletic, he's agile, he's got a good shape, he's played for England. I can get him back to where he should be. But that's difficult selling that to a football club, that have got to shell out 20-30 million for a goalie that's not playing well. But it's a no-brainer with Tom Heaton because of his price at the time was next to nothing for a goalkeeper of that experience and knowledge. And for me, he had to be the number one because of what he bought.
Just very quickly, I know you've got questions about other goalkeepers. Just on transfers and stuff, are the figures ever right? Because fans, you hear a lot of stuff about prices for players and transfer fees and wages, and every so often you'll hear a manager say, that's kind of nowhere near.
Yeah,
I've got 8 million there. Is that correct?
I honestly don't know.
That'd be a Christian stuff.
Yeah, you honestly never know because it is done in the background, so you don't know.
Was it just Tom and Jack recommendations? Who'd get it?
No, we would have gone through quite a few. I mean, as it works out, when you're trying to bring a goalkeeper into a football club that you think is going to make you better, you need to do all your homework. You need to get in with all the scouts. You need to get in with the sporting director. You need to have lots of conversations. You need to bring with you all the homework that you've got, like PowerPoint presentations, making sure that they understand why you want this goal. You're not talking about a few £1,000s, you're talking about millions of pounds. So you've got to sell them and go, why do you want this goalkeeper? Because of this is what it brings, this is what it's got, this is what he's going to do for us. And then they can make a decision from there, but you've got to be able to sell that to them in order. They've got to know what they're buying.
So we just had a quick break to change the cameras and have a toilet break and stuff, and we were changing all the wires around, and that light almost went over, and the goalkeeper in the room caught it with a great save. Thank you for that.
The reactions on that.
Yeah, brilliant. One goalkeeper wanted to talk about Pepe Reina.
Yeah.
Go on, Gash.
Yeah, Pepe Reina came in the January after Tom's injury. How did that come about, and what was he like as a guy?
I think Suso's connections was the big thing. Suso obviously had a lot of connections in Spain, and to have a goalkeeper of his experience and knowledge come into the football club was amazing and great for me. I learned so much from him. In terms of how he plays and how he wanted to play from the back and how he built from the back was different class, and like I said, I learned so much. Even in terms of small-sided games, instead of throwing it, he'd drop it and he'd just drive forward with the ball, and we created that with our young goalkeepers. We made our young goalkeepers do that because that's the game, that's how it's played, and that's how we want the game to be played. We want them to be comfortable, we want them to see pictures, we want them to understand when to play, when not to play, where to play. And he helped a lot of the philosophy, a lot of my philosophy and how I wanted them to build from the back. He really helped that. So really good in terms of his knowledge and his stories and how he was as a person. Fantastic.
Has Emi got a bit of that game in him now, playing out from the back a little bit from Pepe, would you say?
I wouldn't say we got that from Pepe. I think Emi's Emi's so calm, so wants to play, wants the ball, wants to be in possession a lot. He's very comfortable in possession, right and left foot. So I think he's always been that from playing futsal as a kid over in Argentina. I think that was bred into him from a young age.
Yeah, and Pepe's a character in the dressing room, the lively one.
Real character, one of the best I've ever met. What a guy! And his stories, like I say, how can you not learn from a guy with so much experience and knowledge and has won so much, like a born winner? You can't help. He probably got bored of me picking his brains and asking him questions, and some of the goalies he's worked with over the years and some of the people, some of the teams, just like wow, amazing.
What were you thinking when you went walkabouts against Leicester?
Especially at the time as well, we weren't playing very well at the time, and I'm like, oh, this is the last thing we need. But that's not his fault. I mean, in terms of the way we were playing, we were all over the place at times. So he was just unlucky to be in a team where we weren't playing well at that time. So, but he ended up being a big part of us staying in the league. So.
Let's talk about that COVID break then. Obviously a strange time for all of us personally and everyone affected by that time. As a football coach, how do you handle that? Because obviously we all look at it and go, that was an important time for Villa. That kind of kept us in the league effectively. What did you do during that time?
It was a huge time for us. We needed it. Like I've just spoke about, we needed the break. We needed a reset. We needed to do something different. And we made sure we made the most of every single day, in terms of meetings, individual meetings, team meetings, group meetings, staff meetings. We made sure that we maximised our time, and it had a massive effect on when we come back. I think obviously no fans kind of helped a little bit. The pressure was off. We just knew what we needed to do. We needed to stay in the league. We needed to win games. I think the not having the pressure of the fans at that time, I think helped the group. We just managed to win enough games to be able to stay in the football league, in the Premier League. So that's exactly what we did. And the COVID break was huge in how we were going to set up and how we were going to go into those last games.
Something that is often talked about on social media from fans of other clubs, it wasn't the Project Restart that saved Villa, it was the ghost goal against Sheffield United. Just talk us through your thoughts there. What are you thinking on the touchline when that kind of goes?
It's a strange one, really. It's a strange one, and it
funny
was. Yeah, it was. And do you know, things, it kind of evens itself out a little bit. Before VAR was a lot of goals that you scored that were goals. Things that were going in against you, thinking that's offside, or it was a foul, or so you go through games feeling unjust, or you feel like we got away with one there, and I think that was just one of them. Because all teams back in the day would get a goal where it was miles offside, or it was a foul in the build-up, and it just swings and roundabouts. It just evens itself out, and I think that was just one of them. That was just the way it was.
I was in the stadium at the time, with fans locked out, obviously, and you work quite closely with JT up above with the earpiecing. How did that dynamic work with Richard as well and Dean?
Yeah,
what was your role there?
Yeah, it's easier to. And when Steve come in, I based myself up in the stands because you can see so much more. You can, especially when you're dealing with.
So you walk past my seat sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's no Cutler.
It's like you can, especially when it comes to goalkeeper, I can see his position. I can see exactly what he's doing in terms of how he's building, and then I can report back to him. I've got 2 computers in front of me. I can clip things. I can talk to the analysts, and we can sort things from there. They can tell them down on the pitch what's going on. So I think it's much easier in the stand to get a much better view. You're away. What I find as well, and I think I've spoken about it before, I'm emotional. I'm very emotional. So on the side of the pitch, I'm too emotional. But when I'm in the stand, I'm calmer. And I can see things better, and I can judge things a lot better. So when I'm going in at half time and Emi's going, "What do you think?" I can tell him in a calm and exact manner rather than me being emotional, going, "Well, you can do this, go to that, go to that." It's like, no, I'm calm. I've seen the game. I've got your clips. Have a little look at this. Have a little look at that. What do you think? Rather than it being all from emotion.
Do you think that makes you a better coach?
I think so. Yeah, I think it does. I think that's what Dean was so good at. He took the emotion away. He was very calm on the side of the pitch. He wasn't emotional. Everything he took in his stride, and I think over the years I've learnt from that. I used to be up and down all the time. I'd be like, especially doing set pieces, you end up being up and down quite a bit. But I've learnt a lot from Dean in terms of as I've got older and I've got more experience, I am much calmer. Because you have to be, because you have to think on your feet, because the Premier League's so good that there's no time to be emotional. You have to think quick, and you have to think, what the opposition are doing, how they're doing it, and you have to then work against that.
Yeah, it's quite emotional staying up. I think you informed the lads on the pitch The Bournemouth game's finished. We're staying up. How
Yeah,
was that?
emotional. Yeah, amazing. I had the earpiece, so I was up to the analyst who was telling me, you know, like, it's not finished yet. The game's not finished. It's not finished. I'm going, hang on, guys, hang on. It's not finished. And then just somebody jumped in before the game had even finished. So I was like, oh, okay, let's go with it.
Yeah, let's go.
And obviously,
Good job we didn't look stupid.
I know, exactly. So we just went with it, and obviously we stayed up. But just the feeling of that was just like unbelievable. The pressure was just like, oh God, we've done it. We've stayed
Similar to
up.
the promotion kind of thing.
Yeah, similar. You know, even better probably, because the situation we were in and how we galvanised the group and how we stayed up from there. You know, like, that was the plan. You know, you get up, you stay up, and you move forward. And that's, I think, what happened over the space of 3 years. And the club has obviously just kept moving forward from there.
In that summer then, 2020, now we're in, Emi Martinez joins for, again, I've got 16 million fee here, whether that's right, who knows. We spoke on the podcast between us about almost like, do we even need a keeper? Like, Tom Heaton's played in the Premier League before, like, he's done all right, does he stay, that kind of thing, back from injury. But when a player of Emi's calibre becomes available for that price as well, surely you have to act, and that's why you did.
Yeah, I think it was a difficult one with Emi, and I really pushed for him. Obviously, with the scouting department, there was quite a few goalkeepers that came up, and
You're allowed to name names?
Huh?
You're allowed to name names?
Not really. Not really. There was quite a few goalkeepers that came up, and I really had to push for him because he hadn't played many games. You know, he was like 28, I think, at the time, and hadn't really played. So I really had to push in terms of how he is as a goalkeeper and how he is as a person. If you look at the clips of him after winning the FA Cup, he's in tears. He's driven, his mentality and his culture, obviously, being South American, they're emotional, they're driven, they want to be the best, they'll do anything to win. That's his psychological side. When we talk about him technically and tactically, he suits me down to ground because he's got a South American athletic style, but he's also English in terms of his shape. You know, like, he holds a really good shape. He holds his shape for a long amount of time, which means he can transfer and he can push. He's got limited triggers, so it doesn't cost him. Normally, when you see foreign goalkeepers, they've got big triggers. They're very, like, triggery around the goal. But he's consistent because he holds his shape for a long amount of times and he can transfer and push, and he's athletic. And I just saw something in him where I'm like, this guy could be top end, and I just wanted to get hold of him. So I was ringing him, like texting him. I had meetings with his agents. It went on for quite a while. He obviously, other clubs were coming in and pushing him, but we gained a relationship really early. We gained that relationship where he trusted me. I told him where I thought he could be and what he could achieve, and he bought into it straight away. Bought into it, and he's just got better and better and better. And I think the big thing about him is he's getting more experienced. You know, like, playing the games now. He's really like a 23-year-old, 30-year-old. He's not played the games.
Yeah.
So you can imagine his emotions like that, because it's his first real taste of being a number one consistently. So it was just guiding him and making him consistent, not just technically and tactically, but the big thing is emotionally.
Some of those conversations, you'll be at the World Cup in 2 years' time.
Yeah, 100%. We had it on his locker. We have everything. His targets are always on his locker. These are your targets. This is what you're going to do. And he smashed them in his first year, completely smashed them all. Apart from, we wanted to keep the most clean sheets. I mean, I think we equaled it, 15. And we wanted to beat it. So we were a bit disappointed. We were a bit disappointed, but his first year was fantastic. But the second year is always harder than the first year, because then you've got to repeat that, and you've got to go again, and you've got to do that in an emotionally calm way. And I think I think he's developed as a person a lot more now. He's a lot more calm in his way, and you'll see him. When I say calm, he's not as frustrated. We worked a lot, especially this year, on him not being frustrated, him dealing with himself, but not just dealing with himself, but being a personality on the pitch, working on his personality coming out. I think what was happening was he'd get so frustrated if he conceded a goal, he'd go in. So you'd just see Emi Martinez like disappointed, not shoulders back, head up, actually showing people that he cares rather than just showing people that That's not showing people you care. Feeling
Yeah.
sorry. You don't show people you care through feeling sorry for yourself. You show people you care through driving other people around you. You know, being a leader, being a captain, in terms of how you drive other people on the pitch, how you affect people. Show the fans, like you care through wanting to win and showing them you want to win. And I think he's much better at that now. His personality's coming across much more now, and that's why he's a leader.
Yeah, he spoke to the reporters at Brighton. He said, "I love this club so much." He seemed so grateful that he made him number one, and within 6 months he was in the Argentina team.
That's the big thing. The key for him was because he's so passionate about his country that he wants to represent his country. He wants to be the number one. He wants to, obviously, that they are cultural wise, they are massive in terms of playing for their country. It's the be all and end all. No matter what, he has to play for his country, and that's a big thing. And to push him and for him to push himself to be that number one was huge, to get him into the team and not just get in the team and be consistent within that team. The big push was for the Copa America, to make sure he was good to go for the Copa America, and he was huge in that. So it was a big thing for him to settle him into the team, and he's just flourished ever since.
What's it like as a guy to work with you day in, day out?
He's easy for me, not so easy for everybody else around him, because he's a character.
Too much at times?
He's a character, so you got to know him. And Robin's brilliant with him, by the way. Robin's fantastic, because it's not easy to deal with him as a character. He's a number one, but at times he'll be bouncing off the ceiling. At times he'll be low. You have to pick him up, but you have to know him as a character. And Robin's like different class with him, but he's easy to deal with because he's so driven. Sometimes he's too driven, to the point where it's like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to lose weight, how do I save that? I need to save that, why am I not saving that? I need to lose weight, I'm too heavy, and then he's like, calm. And then you talk with him and you rationalise with him.
What do you say? Do you calm somebody like that down?
It's easy because you just hit him with detail, right? This is what we do, it's calm, this is what we do, this is what we'll do next, we're going to work on that. And once he knows there's an end to it, then he's going to improve from it, he's going to get better. He's fantastic. He just does it. He's like, yeah, okay, we'll do that, and then we're done. And then he moves forward again, and it's the next thing, and then it's like.
I don't want to build him up too much now, but how good is he? On the ball scale?
He's one of the world's best. He'll be right up there with the world's best because of everything he brings. And again, we're talking about somebody that's not played many games in the Premier League. He's not that experienced. He's not even that experienced internationally. So he's got all these experiences that he's having to deal with, and he'll have highs and he'll have lows, but he's such an athlete. He's so driven. He wants everything to be right. He wants everything to be perfect. He wants everybody in the same direction. I think the new manager will be really good for him. I think that the staff will be excellent for him, because he wants to get hold of the ball. He wants to build from the back. He wants to be part of that development. And he wants to be part of a football club that's moving forward, because he is going to be one of the world's best. So that football club has to move forward as he moves forward. So he's just an excellent character to work with. Brilliant.
Big heart. He's got big heart, doesn't he?
Massive heart.
Yeah.
He's emotional. He's very, very emotional. He won't hold anything back. He'll tell you exactly how it is. And that's another thing. It's knowing him as a person. It's knowing, like, when his dad had a heart attack, it's like I knew exactly how he'd be feeling. So I went to his house. You've got to get back to Argentina, go and see him, go and visit him, don't worry about us, because you're going to get nothing from him. Go and see your dad, go and sort your dad out. And luckily his dad was fine after that, and I just know how emotional he is. You've got to know the person, how to deal with him, and he's just flourished.
Yeah.
Just another quick one on Emi before we have another quick break. I'd put it down here on my notes, about 15 clean sheets, matching the record with Friedel. Is that something goalkeepers even look at? Do they drive on, like a striker might set a goal record? Would a goalkeeper do that? And then you said he's got it on his locker that he wants to do those kind of things. How important is that for a goalkeeper to kind of set themselves, start off for Martinez specifically, to set targets like that?
Some like them, some don't.
Pressure as well, I guess.
Yeah, some do, some don't. Some just want to go game to game. But he's very much like...
It's the golf club practice, watching the World Cup now.
World Cup's in the room next door.
Yeah. Sorry, Neil.
Yeah, but he's very he's driven in terms of targets. He wants his targets, and every day he'll open his locker and go, right, I've got to achieve that. I need to achieve that. That's where I need to be, and he does. He smashes it. He smashes all his targets. Then we have to increase them. Different this year, World Cup. So it's like a 16-game mini season for us. So all our targets were in those 16 games, building up to the World Cup. what we were going to achieve in terms of clean sheets, penalty saves, shot stopping percentage, cross taking percentage, all those things that we needed to get in to make sure he was right at the top heading into the World Cup.
So we'll skip ahead to the following season. It's a full season behind closed doors at this point, which is obviously kind of difficult to deal with in some aspects, but no pressure with the fans as well, I guess. Started unbelievably. I think it's 4 wins from 4.
Yeah, Barkley came in, did well.
Barkley as well. Grealish absolutely flying. But the one I wanted to ask about was the obvious one, I assume, Liverpool 7-2.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah. I think of a mixture of things. I think the players understood the game plan really well. I think they were awful on the night. I think they were horrific. I think they missed the goalie. Alisson didn't play that game. I think they're just all over the place. I think we just kept getting in behind them every single time. They were so high, the line was so high, and I think we scored so many of our goals just getting in behind them. And they didn't change that. And it was so non-Liverpool. It was unbelievable. We just kept getting in behind them, scoring goals. But we just got a momentum on the night, I think. Just got a momentum. And I think, obviously, fans have a big... I don't know, that they play a massive part. I think it's underestimated how much of a big part fans play in football. And when you haven't got the fans, I think you get more results like that. Kind of it's easier for them to just pack in a little bit, or easier for them to just fold a little bit. I think that's what they did. I think they just folded a little bit. You can't do that with fans in the grounds. You can't. No. So it's just like I just think they went, and it's not like they wouldn't
get a training game kind of thing.
Exactly right. Exactly what happened. Yeah. You wouldn't get that now. Not with fans. You just wouldn't get it.
Yeah, just on that note as well, one of Jack's best games as well, wasn't it? I mean, Jack that season. Just incredible, wasn't he?
Yeah, incredible.
Unbelievable.
And what a player. What a player. What a talent. And I think it's quite difficult for him at Man City, although he is playing a little bit better now. Yeah. I think it's been difficult for him because he just wants to play off the cuff. He's a ball carrier. He'll carry the ball up the pitch for you. He'll create things from doing that. Not being able to do that as much at Man City. I think at times he slows the game down a little bit, maybe because what we did with us, maybe a few too many touches, but just did so well for us at getting the ball up the pitch. Give the ball to Jack and he's going to get you high up the pitch, and that's what you need. It's different at Man City, isn't it? They've got all these top players who play so quickly and so effectively that he probably stifled that at times when he first went in there.
Yeah, 100%, just natural born talent.
Natural talent, like a maverick, unbelievable. Right foot, left foot, strong, buys you fouls all over the pitch. It's brilliant for me as a set piece coach. It's unbelievable, but just an unbelievable talent. And not just that, and he is a maverick, but he works hard at it. You got this perception of him as being this guy that he's just a maverick and just turns up and just plays, but he's not. His work ethic's fantastic. He's driven to win every single day, and he's just there and he works hard in the training ground. And he'd be the last in. He used to sleep in the pods at the training ground and then come back in the afternoon and do weights with Ollie and do all his strengthening stuff with Ollie, and and you can see he's just better for it now. He's an athlete, a proper strong athlete, and when we talk about Jack coming back and working with Ollie, you've got all these people at the football club, right, behind the scenes who don't get any mentions, right, who are fantastic people. The support staff at the football club are fantastic. There's some unbelievable people there.
Who now would you say?
You've got your physios. You've got all your physios. You've got your strength and conditioning, your sports science. Jeremy Oliver, who's the head of performance. You've got the doctor, who's a Villa guy. Yeah. He's the people behind the scenes are brilliant. I've got Smudger, one of the masters, Swolsey, a master. They're all proper driven workaholics that are the hub of the football club. Yeah. Never get mentioned. I think it's important to highlight the fact that these proper Villa-driven people are grafting. Yeah. Ollie Stevenson, the sports science, Paddy, who does sports science with him. Just brilliant people, just workaholics who work hard to make sure the players are performing and driving and moving forward, and they never get mentioned. Nobody ever hears of them. No. So it's they need to get mentioned because they're driven proper people.
Obviously speak a lot about mental health and things these days, and rightly so. Is there anything like that inside the club, like to help the players mentally with the pressure and expectations?
Yeah, there's well-being people around the football club. Martin came in, yes, psychologist. He left with Steve, but yeah, the psychologists are around, and all the players have got their own psychologists. I think they feel more comfortable with their own. But they all need to speak to people because the pressure's so high, and they're all under pressure to perform, and all under pressure to win. So you've got to find ways of dealing with that. But you find that the best players deal with it really well. They deal with it really, really well, and they just go into games like it's nothing, and perform. It's incredible. They're incredible people.
We'll talk about Jack leaving in a sec. We obviously lost him for a portion of that season through injury as well. From missed him terribly. From the fan perspective, it was almost kind of like Dean Smith would be asked about it and he'd be like, well, he kind of might be back in a few weeks or whatever, and then it kind of never would. Did you kind of know how severe the injury was at the time?
No, it's a difficult one with Jack, because I think it was wasn't it a bone bruising injury?
Yeah, and his shin or something.
Yeah, you can't gauge, there's no end time to it. I think it's just one of them where you have to just go and try it and then see how it is. I think after a while, it was more of a try and see kind of thing. I don't think there ever was a kind of, well, he's definitely going to be back at that time. Yeah. I think it's different with bone bruising. I think it's you can never really put an exact time on it, from what I can remember. And he'd struggled with it for a while, and he was playing through pain.
Jack would as well.
Yeah, he would. That's the type of person he is.
So you have all these conspiracy theories, wouldn't you, going, oh well, the club know he's out for 3 months or whatever, but they're just going to keep saying week by week to kind of strain us.
Bone bruising is always a difficult one.
On to April then. Emi's Argentina call up, his first cap in April, I think it was.
I think so.
It's Chile. How was he for that? Buzzing over the moon?
Oh, made up. Yeah, made up. And ready emotionally, ready technically, tactically. He was just ready to go, and I knew he'd go into it flying. He's obviously going with an unbelievable international team that's playing behind that group of players. I went to see them train in Miami probably a couple of months ago now. Emi went out, and I went out to see him and how they work and how they are as a group, and such a learning experience for me. Amazing group. The togetherness of the group was huge. The culture they'd created. I was shocked by the result the other day. Really shocked, because the togetherness of that group is massive. Massive.
Could he have saved either of those?
I think he'd be disappointed, because I know how he is. I know how disappointed he gets when he concedes. He'll always think he can do better, and there are things he can do better, because he can do better with every goal that goes in. There's always something you can change. There's always something you can implement for it so it doesn't happen again, and to work on so you can maximise your chances of saving it. So I think he will be. Knowing him, he will be disappointed, because he's always disappointed when he concedes.
Yeah, wasn't there some quotes about him not sleeping if he doesn't keep a clean sheet or something?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, he did say that.
He doesn't sleep very well after games anyway, to be honest, because he's very emotional, so his emotions will be high. Yeah, he's just that kind of character. It takes him a few days to come down.
Yeah.
Can you just give us a bit of an end of season summary for that year then? I think it's our highest place finish since 2011.
11th, yeah.
11th.
Tailed off a bit, didn't we?
Not brilliant, but we started so well. Jack gets injured and we tail off a little bit.
It's difficult without Jack. I think it always was difficult without Jack. When Jack was injured, we struggled. But I think that season was all about growth as a football club. We grew. We got more players in the football club that were going to make us better players. And I think it has to be a gradual thing. Can't be where we're going to go from just surviving to Europe. There's got to be that gradual step. And the owners are building the football club bit by bit, but it's just going to get bigger and better and stronger, and it's going to continue to grow. That club will always move forward, because of the owners are so passionate about the progression of the place. They've got the infrastructure now is there to not only develop the football club, but develop underneath it as well. They've got young players coming through that can support it. So the infrastructure is there, and it's just going to keep moving forward. It's just going to keep developing, because it cannot help but do that.
The summer of 2021, obviously JT decided to leave. O'Kelly left week before the Watford game, I think. A bit of uncertainty there, and I've got off to a bad start as well. So how was that summer? Obviously Jack leaving as well.
Yeah, difficult again, because you're wanting to move forward, aren't you? You want the club to progress, and obviously lost Rich O'Kelly and lost JT, a big part of the staff. But then I think we brought in Craig Shakespeare at the time, didn't we? Shaky came in, who's got so experienced, so knowledgeable, a proper good guy. So that was kind of seamless in terms of you bringing in a person that's, you know, a good person who fits into the staff really well. So yeah, I mean, we were just keen to push forward, to keep moving the place forward and to keep driving forward. It's not always easy. It's not always just going to move steadily upwards. There's going to be dips, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and it's nothing in the Premier League is going to be easy. It's always going to be difficult.
And losing Jack as well, inevitable, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was always rumours, there was always rumblings of it, and I think when you're a player of Jack's ability, there's always going to be teams that are going to want to. One of the top teams in the world are going to buy you. So when that comes along, I think it was a big decision for him, a hard decision for him, because he's Aston Villa born and bred. That runs through his veins. So it's going to be that kind of decision is going to be difficult. And people say, "Oh, it's money this, it's money that." It's not money. Once you get to the top of the Premier League, you never have to work again. It's not a money decision. It's more of a career decision. It's not so much the money. Champions League, the bigger things that Man City bring, playing with the top players in the world, would have been too much for him to turn down.
Now Premier League winner now as well.
Yeah. This is what I said earlier about kind of being nosy questions, so feel free to slap me in the face or whatever.
It's not a problem.
I put like the Grealish saga here in my notes, which probably isn't truly fair. How much do you know at the time? Obviously, Purslow comes out when it's announced that he's got this release clause, which wasn't public knowledge, I don't think, although it was rumoured that he's got something in there. So how much do you know? Do you know, there's a medical book soon, or do you find out kind of a couple of days before, he might be going next week? Or
it's difficult, really. I think as a coach, you kind of just get on with it. You don't really delve into it. You just go, right, we're working like Jack's here until he's not there. I think your be all and end all is to win football games, and that's all you're concerned about. So you don't really worry too much about that until it happens, because you don't know, basically, because a lot of it's kept from you, and there's no really point in delving into it. You know, what will be. If he goes, he goes. Then we have to move forward from that, and it's just trying to take a positive stance from whatever happens. Obviously, he moved on for a massive amount of money, which then secured the football club for years to come. You know, like, you know, £100 million is a lot of money. To sell a player that's come through the academy for £100 million is huge.
And the owner spent big again. They spent Bailey, Buendia, Danny Ings that summer. So
Danny Ings out of nowhere. Did you know about that?
I didn't know until he turned up.
No, until he turned up. Yeah.
No, I didn't
Is that
know.
literally like he walks into the room? It's like, oh, there's Danny
Just
Ings.
turns up, yeah.
That's bizarre.
And Dean
isn't it?
probably did that on purpose, just to shock everybody. It's like he just turns up, like, it's Danny Ings.
Yeah,
what a signing, what a guy.
What do you think of like transfers and stuff? Again, not being involved in the process that you're signing the checks and stuff, but you're making recommendations. Do you kind of look at transfer business as fans would and go, "Oh, I wouldn't have signed him"? Or
yeah, kind of.
I
think it's one of them, and I think a lot of the discussion is between. I think it was Johan at the time. Johan and Dean would have had big discussions, obviously, with the staff from the scouting department. There'd have been so much detail going into those signings. Like, it's not just on a whim. It's like the detail of the stats and everything that goes behind it is massive. Like, it's huge. No stone unturned. Everything would go into it. So a lot of that detail will go on without you knowing it. You know, like the players they're talking about, and then obviously Dean might come into the building and might come into the office and say, "What do you think about him?" and get our point of view. And there would be quite a few. Look at these players for me. What do you think? You know, like, we'd be given players to look at, and then feedback to him, and then obviously he would then go back and then talk to the scouting department, talk to Johan, and move forward from there. But to sign a player now, there's so much detail that goes behind the scenes that it's massive. And that department, that scouting department, the statistical department, has grown beyond. That's huge. And it has to be, because you're spending millions and millions and millions of pounds, and it's getting more. Yeah. So that has to be right. You have to make sure that every last little bit, and it doesn't always work, and it won't always work. But if you've done everything you possibly can to ensure that you're doing it for the right reasons, then you're okay and you can sleep at night.
Yeah.
Was there any kind of one specific player in mind you can think of as one that got away? Like a player you recommended has now gone somewhere else, and you think, "Oh, I wish they'd have come to Villa"?
Not really. No, I mean, Like I got Emery was a big one for me at Villa. He was the one that I really pushed for. So I was lucky in terms of the trust that they put in me. That they, Johan put a lot of trust in the fact that I wanted this goalie. If you took and Johan works a lot on stats. Emi wasn't statistically brilliant at the time. He hadn't played that many games, whereas other goalkeepers across Europe were statistically very good in terms of how they kept clean sheets and what they'd done. But I just saw something in Emi where I thought, he's the one for us. He's the one, where I can see him really developing and really, pushing forward.
What was that something you seen?
Like I say, just his shape and speed, agility, his power, his calming possession, and I knew there was room for growth. Not only that, but his desire to improve was huge. So you obviously got someone that still can improve, but also is driven to improve. So ticks all the boxes for me. I'm a coach that won't just tick a box and go home. I don't allow the goalies to come in and disappear. Have to come in every day in an environment where they're learning and they're wanting to learn and they're wanting to get better. A competitive learning environment is what you need to create in order for everybody around to keep improving. Like, it's difficult. You got Robin Olsen that's come in now, and like his desire to improve is huge. It's difficult because he's playing behind Emi, so it's like making sure that he's learning every single day. He's not just coming in, being the number 2 and disappearing. He's getting better and better and better and better, and that's how your environment needs to be in order for everybody to keep pushing each other and for Emi to feel like the underneath is growing, which it is. I mean, the department now is huge, full of young international goalkeepers that are thriving in a first team environment. Try to get them in as early as I possibly can to help them develop, help them get comfortable in a first team environment, playing with the best players in the Premier League. And they just, if you can help them, if you can guide them, if you can be there for them, then the quicker they learn and the more comfortable they feel.
I'm going to have to skip ahead now to a bad time in Dean Smith's sacking. 5 defeats on the spin ultimately led him to losing his job. Wolves, Arsenal, West Ham, and then Southampton on the front. Spurs, Wolves, Arsenal, West Ham, and Southampton. We said before, when we were prepping, it's a pretty tough run, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'll come to your position in a sec. What were your thoughts on Smith losing his job?
Like you just said, I thought it was a tough time for us. I think any team really in the Premier League, if you come against a tough run like that, can lose 5 games. And there's some of those results you go,
by 1 goal as well.
Like tough, like was it, which Wolves game was it? Was it at home? Did you lose 3-2? It was one of like the deflected free kick, and we were winning the game, weren't we? 2-0 up with like 5-10 minutes to go. That's the one. And it's like all of a sudden it was like the momentum turned. It was huge. We were cruising that game, and that's like the Premier League. Just momentum's tough, Once you lose that momentum, a team gains momentum. It's hard to then stem the tide a little bit.
We play 5-a-side at Perry Bar Thursdays. One team could be 9 goals up. Momentum swing.
It is. And then as you learn, you get more experience. You have to break that momentum. Whether you go down, you take your time with everything. You break it right down. And you just go. That's it. We're just gonna stop the tide a little bit. But yeah, like I say, that was a tough run of results. But we kind of, once you lose 5 games, you're on the edge, and it's different. And I think he kind of saw it coming. And difficult time because of what we created. We created a philosophy and a culture around a football club that was enabling the club to move forward. It was really progressing, really moving forward. Everybody was in it together, like I spoke about before, and that was going to disappear.
Your own position quickly, obviously you stayed on. Gerrard comes in, we'll talk about it in a sec. Doesn't bring a goalkeeper coach from Rangers as far as we know anyway, so you stay. Is there any period where you're thinking, well, I came in with Dino, I might be out the door as well?
I think you always feel like that. I think you feel like anyway, your job's never safe in football ever. It doesn't matter how well you're doing, doesn't matter what you've developed, what you've created, the philosophy and the environment you created. In football, you can just be gone, as simple as that. And I was always told I was more of a club appointment. Yeah. Once I moved from West Brom to Villa, I was told I was more of a club appointment than a manager's appointment. But you always know in the back of your mind that when a new manager comes in, brings his own staff in, then. And I was always, I don't want to be a spare part. I can't live like that. I can't work like that. I'm not that kind of person. Got my views, got my ideas, got the way I like to work, the way I like to be, and what I can't be is a spare part sitting in the corner and a bit of a yes man. I can't. It's just not me. It's just not the way I work. So I'd rather not be there and not have to be a yes man. than be there and sit in the corner and just nod my head. That's just not me.
I'm going to jump ahead. You can come to Gerrard in a second. I'm going to jump ahead because I saw a comment on Twitter yesterday, I think, about you and your position since you've obviously left the club now. I'm kind of doing a weird order here, talking about Emery. There's like suggestions that because you've become like this well-liked fan favourite, cult hero status, whatever it is, they were saying like even though Emery's brought a goalkeeper coach with him, Neil Cutler should have stayed as like head of goalkeeping. And some people are saying, well, that kind of undermines Emery's position as bringing somebody in. So obviously we'll talk about you leaving in a sec, but if you'd have stayed and been in a different role, would that not have worked either?
It's just difficult, isn't it? It would have been difficult to Javi coming in and working with Emi and having me in the background. Probably would have been difficult for him. So I don't hold anything back. I would never say anything bad or negative towards the new staff that come in, because I know exactly how it is and I know exactly how it works, and I'm big enough and ugly enough to understand that that's football, that's how it is. Obviously devastated to leave the football club. What I'd built over 4 years was working brilliantly. The young boys coming through, the way Emi was performing, everybody was developing really well. But that's football. That is exactly how it is. And if you go into the game naive to think that you're above that, then you can have a nasty experience. So you just got to understand it and know it, and that's just the way it is. And players move on. People kind of move on quickly. Players move on very, very quickly. The club moves on very, very quickly. Somebody said to me, I think I spoke to the club doctor yesterday, he's like, you're not feeling any bitterness towards the games and anything like that? I'm like, I've got a lot. I know how bad it is to lose football games and have the feeling. The last thing I want is Villa to lose games, right? And not develop and not move forward with so many people that I like within the infrastructure, and obviously I got on so well with the supporters, and they've been outstanding to me, like amazing with me. So I just want the club to move forward. I want it to develop. I want it to keep getting better. I want it to keep growing.
Yeah, how was it with Stephen? He kept you on. How was he first few weeks?
Really good.
Not awkward at all. No?
Like I spoke about it earlier, it's like he's a really good person. So straight away got in. We had some really good discussions. I told him I was all in. Yeah. I'll give you everything I've got, even though I was really close to Dean. Obviously difficult in that way, but he trusted me, backed me, allowed me to get on with my job to the best of my ability. Never questioned it. There was never any kind of negativity. Just allowed me to come in. Allowed me to just do my work every single day. So never any issues. Never issues. Like I would. Bounced a lot of stuff off him. He was brilliant, and it was, like I say, it was just a tough time. We didn't win enough football games in order for him to keep his job at the end of the day. So, and a lot spoke about, like I said earlier, like I keep saying, some of that was down to bad luck. Like with so many games we should have scored more goals and we didn't. We had a real lack of goal scoring at the time. Like we really struggled to put the ball in the back of the net.
Started off so well, didn't it? It was pushing your Man City's, Liverpool so hard, and you're thinking great times ahead here. But
yeah, it was totally different in terms of the way we set up, in terms of formation wise, and the way we went about our work. And we were narrow, and we pushed from the inside out, and we pressed from the inside out. We made it difficult for teams. End of the day, just within that formation, didn't score enough goals.
I mean, we kind of moved away from any threat of relegation that year, I suppose, which probably was never. Because I always said I was very much a Dean Smith fan. I always thought Dean Smith probably would have got us to 14th at some point. It was my kind of opinion, but steered us away from that. And he kind of was always the talk about, well, when I've had a pre-season, when I've signed some transfer windows, that's big for me. Next year we'll move on. Obviously, you were both in Australia for different reasons.
Following Neil around,
trying to get the interview. What was the preparation like in Australia? Did you come away from that feeling well prepared for the next season?
No, not at all. The opposite, in fact. We went into that Bournemouth game feeling really prepared and shocked. Like the result shocked us all. Like I think we were unbeaten pre-season. I don't think we lost the game. Like we felt tactically good.
Signings are made early.
Look, we were at it. And then we got to the first game and it was a complete shock to the system. They brought something different to what we expected. They went a little bit more direct, struggled to deal with Kiefer Moore. It was Kiefer Moore, wasn't it? Kiefer Moore had an unbelievable game, and they were at it. And it knocked the stuffing out of us, really did. Kind of similar, and I kept saying it before the game, similar to the Watford game, the first game of the season. Was that season before?
Was, yeah.
And we turned up to Watford and we were like, we had a decent pre-season, we all felt organised, we all felt ready, and we got turned over by Watford. And I was saying at the time, I felt like, that we were at it and we were ready, but a bit apprehensive because I'd been through the season before, and it happened exactly the same thing again. Like, you feel good, you feel organised, and you feel ready, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, where's that come from? And it kind of went on from there a little bit.
Yeah, one of the things, I don't want to go into specific results and stuff too much. One of the biggest talking points away from the kind of results themselves was the captaincy situation. Obviously switching it from Tyrone Mings to John McGinn. Again, fans would have possibly suggested Martinez would have been a candidate to be the number one kind of captain. I know he's vice captain or in a leadership group or whatever. Mm-hmm. I know you wanted to ask about McGinn in a sec, but what did you think about that captaincy change?
I think it's a real difficult one, and it's I think it's a tough one because it is a big kind of responsibility, and it is a pressurised. The captain of Aston Villa Football Club. I think Ty has been better through not being the captain. He just dealt with himself, and that's good for him. That's been much better for him. It's allowed him to just concentrate on him and what he does and nothing else. Different with Guinea. Guinea's played in positions where he probably hasn't flourished. It's probably not his favourite position. But what Guinea does, he just gets on with it. Doesn't moan, doesn't complain, gets on with it, and that's him in a nutshell. Like, he's a leader in terms of his tenacity on the pitch, the way he goes and the way he heads into games. His character off it's very, very good. His personality around the place is excellent. So captain-wise, it can be a bit of a poison chalice. You've got to be able to pick the right person in order that's going to flourish from being a captain. Emi would flourish because he's so emotional and he's so driven. He's huge in terms of how he wants the place to be. And he's like, culturally, he's like proud. He's a proud person. So to be the captain would fill him with pride more than anything else. So him being the captain would fit his personality really, really well. I don't think it's affected Guinea's game in terms of, the pressure on him has affected him to the point where he's not performing very well. I just think with Guinea, he's just played in positions where have not suited him as much as other positions. He's a top class player who's going to give you everything he's got every single game. So I just think he maybe flourishes a bit higher up the pitch. So
it's about John. Give us a flavour of Guinea around the place.
I think everybody knows Guinea. I don't know his personality. I know what he's like. Especially on the pitch, he just gives everything he's got. He's 100% committed. He'll give everything. Around the place, jovial, positive. You need people like that around the place. You do, because it breaks up that pressure. It breaks up that relentless kind of winning kind of mentality. Everybody's like, we're winning, and that pressure of winning. He just comes in and breaks it all up. Top character. Been so difficult for him, but he's been under a bit of pressure in terms of his own position, but has just got on with it. He just doesn't moan. Never hear him moan. I think he's like, I could be at St Mirren, I'm at Aston Villa Football Club.
Brilliant.
He's just brilliant in terms of a personality. So grounded, so down to earth. Got time for everybody. Just a lovely, little driven guy.
Yeah. You spoke about the Bournemouth defeat on the opening day and the results. Just the wheels fell off towards the end. The results wasn't great. How was it at Villa at that time? No,
it was just a struggle. Like I said before, we were unlucky. We created chances and just not scored. And it was just, I think it's just, you change formation, you change your way of playing. I think we got rid of the wide players, couldn't really change in terms of formation too much. And just the lack of goals. We needed to create a little bit more from full-back areas. We didn't manage to do that, and then the goals just dried up. And I think when you're playing in games and you're not scoring, you're going to get hit with a sucker punch in the Premier League. Someone's going to score. You just can't. You've got to score when you're on top of games. You've got to score, and that just didn't happen for us.
Yeah, I just felt like there was, again, this is me with my fan hat on. It just felt like there was times where I just couldn't see what we were doing. You'd have McGinn and Ramsey covering full-back, and you think, well, you're better off just leaving the full-backs back and letting McGinn and Ramsey push forward and play in a more natural position for them. You just said there about McGinn.
Difficult because we were expecting our full-backs to get higher and wider and create from those areas, and it's something that's worked for them in Rangers. Rangers did it really, really well. Liverpool did it really, really well, and it just didn't happen for us. And then obviously probably not got the players in they wanted to get in. Didn't help.
Yeah, changing McGinn, I'm not having a go at McGinn, but like changing him to the captain, it almost felt like Gerrard had made him his man, so he was then like undroppable.
I think it was different to that. I think Steve was concerned that Ty wasn't playing very well, and to take the pressure off Ty a little bit. And I think Guinea was the next one along. When you're talking about a personality, he probably was the next one to come in and be that personality in terms of being the leader and the organising and having that you know what he's going to give on the pitch. Like he's 100%. So being that leader in terms of his endeavour and his drive and his attitude was he was probably the next one along. And I think the press made a little bit too much of the fact that he had stripped Ty of the captaincy, when I think he was trying to help him more than anything else.
And it's worked.
And it's worked because Ty's now. He's now flying. He's now back to his normal, his normal self. So,
let's talk about Gerrard leaving the club. Then Fulham was obviously the breaking point for him, which was it was horrific, wasn't it? Let's face it. How do you assess that kind of end period though? Because we got kind of these good results, obviously the draw against Man City, beat Southampton, all those at the expense of any kind of creative attacking football. Just about got over the line. Fulham specifically though, how bad was that?
Yeah. I think people felt the pressure around the building before that game. I think that there was a kind of it just felt like it was going to happen before.
I kept saying on the podcast that it felt like being on a knife edge.
Yeah,
and this was as a reporter, because I thought at any point we might see a club statement and we have to kind of burst into life and do work.
And it is like that, isn't it? And I think the players felt it. I think everybody felt it. I think that culminated in the performance. I think it was just a bit like, the atmosphere wasn't great because of that, because of results, because of what was happening, and because of the anticipation of, any day now the manager could be sacked. So I think that culminated in, I think, the result against Fulham. Even though the players were 100% driven to perform on that day, I just think it's just what happens when the feeling around the place isn't right. That can happen.
Yeah. My next question, I think we've already mentioned it. Was Stephen a little bit misunderstood?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. But I think he's quite guarding his personality, guarding people that he trusts. I think that's coming from being a top player. You have a group of people around you that you trust, and then your personality doesn't show as much, doesn't shine as much, and people don't get to see you as much as a person as maybe they should do. I don't think we got to see the best of Steven Gerrard. Definitely not.
Just talk us through the night after Fulham from your perspective. How does that unfold? How do you find out about it? Does he come in the room and say, "Oh lads, I've been sacked"?
Yeah, it was a tough one for Steve, because he was told at the game, so we were on the bus coming back.
Is that awkward?
Not really so much awkward. It's just disappointment, really. Disappointing how the game turned out. Disappointment, that the manager's lost his job. There's obviously the staff are going to lose their job as well. He's got good people around him. The staff were really good people that we got on really well. So obviously then you've got them losing their jobs, and it's like, then the back of your mind you're going, am I going to lose my job? So it's like, you're kind
of holding on to that club appointment thing, thinking, well, I might survive this.
Yeah, well, it's just, it's not even that. It's just the fact that it's like, you just don't know. You don't know. It's like, you just have to keep getting on with it. I thought that me and Danksy might take the team after. So I'm trying to get my head around that. We were trying to get our head around that a little bit. There's some games coming up we need to win. So yeah, it's just thinking about, obviously with Steve more than anything, because you know how driven he is, and you know how driven his staff are to win games and to make the club better, and he's just been sacked. So it's just a disappointing kind of time. It's like it's a horrible time, really.
Yeah, spoke to him since, Stephen?
We've texted a fair bit, just to make sure he's all right, his family are okay, and good, he's fine. You think he's enjoying a bit of a rest. I think he's preparing himself to go again, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes in next.
You and Danksy then, in charge of the Brentford game. How was that? Been whirlwind couple of days?
I mean, I've did it a little bit at West Brom, I did it at Walsall, so I'm kind of experienced enough now to be able to step up and help a manager run the team, or a caretaker manager run the team. It was quite difficult for Danksy, because when he first came in with Dean, he was given a role where he had quite a lot to do. He was quite a big player in Dean's coaching staff. But when Steve came in and he brought in all his own staff, Danks' role kind of then diminished and didn't really have a lot to do. But Danks is driven, like a real driven coach that wants to coach. He wants to be on the grass. He wants to be putting together presentations. And his detail's phenomenal. So I think he felt a little bit stifled under Steve. That's not Steve's fault. Steve brought in all his own coaching staff, so left very little for Danksy to do. Whereas I think Danks's frustration was he was desperate to do more. He was desperate to coach. He was desperate to have a say. So when his time came and he could take the team, I think everybody then could see what he is as a coach and how he performs as a coach, and his detail that he does, and how he puts his presentations together, how he sets up his teams. It's fantastic. Yeah. Just like his methodology behind what he does is very, very good.
A Brentford game, nice afternoon for you both, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have a bit of a bounce back after a manager leaves, and then the players were fantastic. You know, like they just went into everything we asked them to do and just hit the ground running. So we couldn't have asked any more of them, really. They were, it was a great first game. Obviously, then we went to Newcastle away. It was totally different.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
From a fan perspective, I hope I'm not being too intrusive, but you kind of wonder if they can play out that against Brentford.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they do that before?
I think there's a few things. I think in the game it could have gone either way a little bit in the first probably half an hour. Like when you're playing against a team that's we talk about momentum, they've got real momentum, so they're on a real journey. And then obviously Emi going off, and then the penalty, which we felt was unlucky. You know, like the penalty was unlucky. And then once they get 2 goals, it's like that's hard to come back from that, especially when there's no real manager in the building in terms of, you know, like there's obviously caretaker manager and there's us, and then it's just like it's quite easy to fold from there. I think they struggled after that, really struggled. 2-0 down, I think it could have been 8. Yeah.
50% win ratio, not too bad.
Yeah, not bad.
How's Aaron doing? What's next for him?
Good, yeah. I think he's been offered a role at football club. I'm not sure what that role is, but I think the club need to keep him around because of his ability and his knowledge and his experience and what he brings. I think they need to keep him around. But we'll see. I'm not really sure which direction he's going to head at the minute, but I know the club have offered him a role.
Yeah. Another person who's probably a bit misunderstood as well, Austin McPhee.
Yeah, I saw you speaking about this on the Ben Foster podcast, the Nottingham Forest game. Can you just kind of retell that story for us?
Yeah, I think firstly, I think Austin is misunderstood. I think he's been a massive eye-opener for me. The detail that goes into his set pieces are phenomenal, like I've never seen before. Yeah. He's got this thing called TrackMan, where you can gauge exactly the spin, the pace, the dip, the height, everything you need to know. So if you've got a free kick from, say, 2 yards outside the box, you'll know exactly who suits that position in order to get the ball up and down and that's his detail he goes into. He's got his own analyst, and because set pieces are huge now, aren't they? They're massive. So detail he goes into is phenomenal. Now with set pieces, it's not always going to be perfect because basically you tell them everything, you give them all the detail, and it's up to them whether they do it or not.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just up to them. You know, they've got to buy into the detail. So it has been difficult for him, but his knowledge and the way he goes about setting up his set pieces is fantastic. He's like brilliant. Been a massive eye opener for me. I've learned a lot from him.
Unai kept him on for a reason as well. Likes his work.
Exactly right. He's detailed. He's very, very good at what he does. So yeah, in terms of the issues we had at Forest were, I think we'd had 3 free kicks, all of them had hit the wall. So we were like, Steve's come in at the end of the game and gone, what the hell's going on here? You know, you do all these set pieces, you've got all this equipment, you've got your own analyst, you keep hitting the wall, we're wasting our time. So Austin's like, this is not right, this. So he goes away, he does all his own work, and he came up with the fact that when a referee strides out, he doesn't stride out a yard. It averages something about 0.8 yards when he strides out, and not all of them actually go a straight line and exactly 10 steps. So he actually measured out that the walls against Forest were something like 7 yards. Oh. So he's been practicing a wall 10 yards away where they're getting up and down perfectly and into the back of the net. But they're like 7 yards away. So he had a meeting, he's gone away and had a meeting with the referees, and the referees have come back and said, you know, you're right. And they've gone, right, we'll ensure that the wall is 10 yards back every single time. Now that's all good if you're a striker, but if you're a defender if you're trying to keep the ball at back of net, which is my job, now I've got more to do because you've got the likes of some of the best players in the world taking free kicks that can get the ball up and down quite quick. So now it's more difficult. So,
and the contrast to that was Luca Dean's free kick against United was about 12 yards.
Exactly right.
Big wall.
But it probably wasn't. It probably stepped out 12 yards, knowing it was 0.8 every time they do it. So it probably was around 10 yards. Yeah.
Again, sorry to be the bearer of bad news. We are going to talk about you leaving the club now. We touched on it earlier. Again, just the insight. How do those conversations happen? Are you pulled into a meeting? Is it a phone call?
Yeah, I mean, I had quite a few meetings along the way with Johan, and Johan was quite honest with me in terms of he couldn't tell me either way. He didn't know at the time who was coming in, or what their decision would be, or what the club's decision would be at the time. And like I said before, my shoulders are wide. If a staff come in and they don't want me around it, I'm not going to stay. As simple as that. That is it. I'm done. I'm gone. So I think Unai was due in on the Tuesday. I got brought into the office on the Monday and had a good chat with Johan, and he was just honest in terms of that they were going to let me go, and the new staff were coming in. I think 9 staff were coming in. And just thanked me for all I'd done within the space of 4 years. So I had no arguments. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to walk away with any kind of negativity. I think I've come away from the football club with it being in a better place. I think the goalkeepers are developing, that we've developed through the system, a philosophy that we've developed with Martin Naylor and the other goalkeeping staff. Jonathan Flatt and Mike Pearce, they were really good coaches, really bought into philosophy, really started to develop these young goalkeepers, and it was all working seamlessly well. So I could walk away kind of in a positive way rather than negative way. I didn't feel like it was kind of walked away and it was all negative, and I actually felt like a bit of pride that I'd actually come away from the football club with it in a much better place. Yeah.
So about Emi's message to Neil. Best English coach by miles, and what next for you now? Go again in the new year?
Taking some time, it's just I've been in football since I was professional football since I was 17. I've never had any time off. I've never been away from it. It's the first time I've been sacked from a football club or left a football club. So now it's time to be with the family, be with the kids. Yeah. Well, for how long I don't know, but yeah, it's just taking time to reset. Mentally, physically, just to reintroduce myself to the kids. I think they're happy I'm at home more.
How old are they, by the way?
I've got 11-year-old twins, 11 tomorrow, 14-year-old boy and a 23-year-old girl, so it's busy in my house. Yeah, busy in my house, yeah. So, yeah, it's just to take stock, watch some football, watch the World Cup, spend Christmas at home and then see what comes up. Like I say, it's a good opportunity now to step back, keep learning. I'll be going into football clubs, looking at, I've got a lot of contacts in the game where I can go and visit, and learn and keep learning. So that's the most important thing, is to not just step back and wallow around the house. You've got to step back, stay fit, and learn and keep learning and keep talking to people. And like I said, luckily I've got a lot of contacts in the game where I can just ring them up and ask them questions and go in and go and see other people work. That's how you move forward.
Yeah. Would you ever consider a management role? Be the number one somewhere?
Not really. I think what I strive to be is the best I can possibly be in terms of my position of a goalkeeping coach. I want to be the best I could possibly ever be. I'd love to be an international goalkeeping coach. I really would love to.
With England?
Yeah, I would like that. That would be the massive thing for me, that to be an international. And it's like I've represented England all the way up to, I came through Lilleshall National School. I've played for my country all the way up to 18s. I've been a part of all that, and know what it's like to be an international footballer, and just to be anywhere part of that would be amazing for me. So to be in, like going away and seeing Argentina, the way they work. I've been away to Sweden, seeing how they work, and to be part of that international setup and to understand that is something I'd like to do. But it's just seeing what comes up in the new year, and seeing something else might come up that I think would suit me. So we'll see. I'm driven now to keep moving forward. And
surprised Dino ain't been on the blower? No.
No, it's. I would never want anybody to lose their job. So he's got a goalkeeping coach who's good in Norwich, and he's not the type of person to do that. They've got a good goalkeeping coach up there, so I wouldn't want that.
just to end on something a little bit more positive, Emi's obviously very Emi Martinez heavy, as you'd expect in this podcast. What are his chances of lifting the World Cup, do you think? I
think they've got a big chance. Like I said, I went to see him a few months ago and went to see how they work, and they were fantastic. They're on a journey. That group are got a great group of players. The togetherness is fantastic. The culture they've created around the group is really good. Obviously, they've started off with a bad result, but that can happen. Any World Cup, that can happen to any team. Because you always get the shocks, you always get that team that come out and surprise you, and I think they surprised them. Yep. Didn't quite know how to break them down, wasn't patient enough in order to break them down, and got a bit like forcing things, and wasn't really calm enough. But they'll be all right. They'll learn from that. They've got another 2 games to win, so knowing the group as they are, they'll win those games, and then they'll be flying. I think they've got a massive chance, huge chance.
Yeah, message to Villa fans now watching along.
Yeah, I think I said it all in my text, my tweet. They've been fantastic to me ever since I worked for the football club. The connection I had with them was phenomenal, and I've had some unbelievable messages through from fans wishing me all the best and thanking me for what I've done. So I can't thank them enough. They've been outstanding. I went to watch them at the cup game. At Old Trafford and stood with the fans, and it was eye opener. Not really, just we stood out of the way. My little boy took my little boy, and just to stand with them and see what they see, and look at it from a different perspective was big, was huge. And like I said before, they've always been fantastic. But to receive some of the messages I did was unbelievable. So I can't thank them enough. They've been brilliant. Yeah, and we can't thank you enough for this podcast. You've been very generous with your time. Sorry for keeping you so long.
No problem. Saving that cameras are
saving that light from falling over. Brilliant.
Got all the time in the world now. We can stay all day.
No, brilliant. Answered every question we wanted to. I think really, really good. Thank you very much.
No problem at all.
Ash, thanks for your help on this as well. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, then please do subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below as well. Your appreciation for Neil, I'm sure, won't go unnoticed. Neil, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your thoughts and comments. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.